Welcome on into a mailbag here at Falcons Today. It's from our live show, which aired on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. First question comes in from Lenny Sutton. Sign Cam Newton to back up Kirk Cousins. I don't know if you saw what Cam Newton had to say about the contract Kirk Cousins got. Wasn't necessarily a ringing endorsement that made it feel like those two would get along super well. But listen, I think Cam Newton is just washed. That's just simply the easiest way to put it. And it's a little bit unfortunate because he played through some injuries that maybe he shouldn't have, and he had a really good career with a very rugged play style of tossing his huge body into linemen on the defensive line, and he got a lot of touchdowns out of it, but he got a lot of injuries as a result as well. No. Am I over the moon about Taylor Heinicke? Not really. I think a more likely scenario for an addition to the quarterback room would be Atlanta drafting a quarterback in day 3 of the draft. I don't think they'll go quarterback in days 1 or 2, but I don't think Cam Newton is what you're looking for to back up Kirk Cousins. I'll turn it over to you guys. Would you want Cam, right? Georgia guy to sign to back up Kirk? Yes or no? It sounds fun. It would sell a jersey or two, but I would say no. I would pass on this. Ethan Greer with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Ethan. Trade back with the Bills. Get Rousseau as well. What is Rousseau? Do we have any idea what Rousseau is? Ethan, you got to help me out here. I don't really know what Rousseau is, so I'll put a pin in that part of it. I'm trying to think on the fly what that could mean. But trading back with the Bills, Buffalo's at 28. For them to go 28-8 to jump 20 spots, they would have to surrender their second-round pick this year. They don't have a second-rounder next year. Or they have 2 second-rounders next year, sorry, because of the Stephon Diggs trade. That's a big fallback, and I don't think Atlanta is likely in a spot where they want to fall back 20 spots. So I would actually say no to this. I'd rather stay at 8, maybe move back a couple spots. What's Rousseau? Gregory Rousseau. Okay. That makes a little bit more sense. I thought you had Russ with a typo. That was my brain. Yeah, solid defensive end. I don't think Buffalo would do that, though. But, I mean, maybe if they wanted to go get Dallas Turner or someone, although I'd rather just stay at 8. ATL, Minnesota. If the Vikings trade up to number 4, is there a chance the Falcons trade up with the Chargers for Marvin Harrison? I mean, in this situation that ATL, Minnesota points out, the Chargers' 5th overall pick kind of becomes the 1st overall pick in a way because you're going to see quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4. So the draft for every team not picking a quarterback starts at 5. And it'd be tempting as hell to not want to go up and get Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick 5, put him with Kirk Cousins. And, I mean, you may not stop a lot of offenses, but you're going to score a lot of points with Drake London, Kirk Cousins, Marvin Harrison, Bijan, Kyle Pitts. And I think the Chargers are more open to trading back than the public believes. I know they need a wide receiver really badly, but did Harbaugh dominate at Michigan or even San Francisco with elite wide receivers? No. He won in the trenches. So he may be very open to moving back a few spots, getting a tackle, acquiring Atlanta's 43rd overall pick, and picking a wide receiver then. So if this was an option, I would do it in a heartbeat. Dat one Falcons fan. Trade proposal. Atlanta receives 11 and 23. Minnesota receives 8, 43, 79, and a 2024 second. Atlanta drafts Turner at 11, Kool-Aid McKinstry at 23. Is this a good trade for the team? Let me know your thoughts. I think you actually might be giving the Vikings too much. I do see you have the right train of thought about if you go from 8 to 11, well, the Vikings don't have a second rounder to give you for falling back. And they're not going to give you 11 and 23 for 8. That's a massive overpay. So you got to give them something back to get 23, which would be 43. But I don't think you have to give up 79 and a second. I think if you were looking for a fair trade, it would be 8 and 43 for 11 and 23. And maybe a future third, not a second. And if you do make that trade, Turner at 11, Kool-Aid at 23, that would be pretty fun. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is a really like Swiss knife type of player. If you could get Quinyon Mitchell, I doubt he'd be available at 23. That would be my preferred selection, but good chance he's gone anyway. So I would not be opposed to that trade, though. Next question. What are the thoughts on a defense-only draft? Who was it a few years ago that went defense with their first, 6 picks in the draft? I'm trying to remember. It was a new head coach that took over. I almost want to say it was the Dolphins with Brian Flores. I could have that wrong. Maybe you're going to fact check me here, Colin. But what are my thoughts? I don't think it's a great idea. You should probably allocate some resources to offense. Try to look at draft picks like shoot bucks from the offense, right? It's a currency. It's what GMs use to pay. And putting all of your money in one stock. What do your investors say, financial investors say? Like, diversify your portfolio. You should probably go offense a little bit. So I don't hate the idea, but I would caution against it. I think you'd want to add to some depth points on your offense, like wide receiver, an offensive tackle, tight end. Those are spots that come to mind that you maybe want to water some of those plants. All right. Someone went all defense, and this was like 6 years ago. It's driving me nuts. I need someone in the chat, in the comments, to tell me. But before we do, I do want to share with you guys some information about our sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. That is the #1 daily fantasy sports platform in North America, where all you got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. So if you want to get involved with some NBA, NHL, MLB, feel free to knock yourself out. It's a great way to have some extra fun if you're going to the ball game or if you're going to a basketball game. I'm going to go ahead and lock in some season-long stat projections for the NFL year, taking the more on Kirk Cousins' passing yards. I really like these two a lot, though. Jalen Hurts, I've low-key never been super-duper high on him to begin with. Kind of like the less because he runs as well for his passing yards. And then I like the more on Saquon Barkley's rushing yards at a little over 1,000. Do the Eagles give him all that money just to put him on the bench? No, they're going to force feed him the rock. So if you like my selections, I invite you to tag along. Go ahead and use code CLNS after you download the Prize Picks app to get a deposit match up to $100. Now, I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Archangel, next question. Sleepers that we should have our eyes on in the later rounds. Really good question, Archangel. Not trying to get me fired today like you were last week. It's a tough one. Okay, let's start with round 4. That's kind of a fun round to find a sleeper. The first day of day 3, or the first round of day 3 of the draft. I think you might see Atlanta go offensive tackle. Yale has a really good left tackle. Kurane Armaganji. I probably got that wrong a little bit, but very glowing reviews coming out of Yale surrounding their left tackle. Karan Armaganji. That could be a sleeper to watch for. I don't think this next player I'm going to say is going to go as high as other people are projecting him, but I think he's going to make a really good 3rd round pick. Malachi Corley. He went to Western Kentucky. He's the yak monster. He does one thing, and he does that one thing very well. Yards after catch. He could be kind of another Deebo Samuel, if you will. Those are 2 names that come to mind. On the defensive side of the football, not really crazy about any of the edge rushers as you get past the top few, so nothing that stands out to me there. Corners, I don't really have any high day 3 cornerback grades. From a linebacker perspective, what about Peyton Wilson from NC State? Mixed reviews on where he could go in the draft, and I don't think Atlanta needs a linebacker, but I would give you the first 2 names as spots Atlanta could target. Leaf Yapel, what is your worst-case scenario for the draft where the next stream you are here saying the sky is falling? I like this question. Worst-case scenario for the draft would be at pick number 8, because I think it's hard to have a worst-case scenario if you trade back, because you get more picks then, and that's always going to smooth over maybe a potential bad pick after a trade back. Worst case scenario at pick number 8, man, I think it would be quarterback, to be frankly honest with you. Like, I don't want to see Atlanta go quarterback in round 1 or round 2. And the reason being is you gave Kirk Cousins guaranteed money for 2 years. You're not moving on from Kirk after 2024 or after 2025. So even if you're ready to have him handed over to someone, that someone's going to be sitting for 2 years, maybe even 3 years. They're going to have almost all their rookie contract wasted. I understand having a quarterback behind Kirk to develop. I don't think this is the year to do it. I think next year would be a much more appropriate time. So if they went quarterback at 8, I would throw up violently, projectile, and I would say at 43, I don't think this is me just being mean to Chop Robinson. I think he's too athletically gifted to say that would be a disaster. I would say at pick 43, I will go with, I don't want to be mean because any prospect I say is going to be like, what the hell, dude? But I don't think it'd be a good fit for Atlanta to go get Xavier Legette. And I say that because I think he's a receiver that needs to go somewhere where he can actually sit for a year and learn the position and develop, because he only had 1 year as a starter at South Carolina. That's not going to be a good spot for him in Atlanta to do so. So you're going to take a guy that needs to develop, that you're going to thrust into a starting role after wasting pick number 8. That would be my worst case scenario. Isaiah Jones, how likely the Falcons win the division the next 4 years? Like a clean sweep for the next 4 years? That's pretty tough to do. Only like the Chiefs and the Patriots have really, what are the teams have won 4 straight division titles in the last 10 years? New England, Kansas City. I don't even know if Green Bay's done it, because Minnesota, the Bears won in 2018, the Vikings in 2022, NFC West, the 49ers, Rams, and Seahawks have all alternated. NFC East is someone different every single year. We did the AFC East. AFC North, no one's won it 3 straight years in the entire history of that division. AFC South is kind of a revolving door. Maybe the Titans have done 4 years with Vrabel. So I think the Titans have won 4 in a row with Vrabes. How likely? It's not like there's Murderer's Row in Tampa, Carolina, and New Orleans. So if Kirk dominates, he could feast in a bad division. I would say it's like a 30% chance, though. Junior Riv, do you think Joe Milton or Spencer Rattler is a good pick at round 4 or 5? So I don't know if you guys know a little thing about me or two, but I'm going to be very biased here and say Joe Milton. One, I can't stand Spencer Rattler. From a personal, like a personality standpoint, for me, ever since watching that show on Netflix, QB1, I felt like he was such a prick in that show, and I'm sure he's grown and developed, and it's unfair of me to say that because I never actually met him in person, but if you're going to ask me my pick between the two, I'll go with Joe Milton, an absolute rocket of an arm that, yes, had some accuracy issues at Michigan and then Tennessee, but as someone that watched every single snap of Tennessee football last year, his wide receivers were dog water. You give them actual NFL talent, and they're not going to drop passes or just not run routes correctly, because every once in a while, they would just stop running the route. Like, there are things Joe has to work on, but I'll take Joe Milton over Spencer Rattler. Diego, what do you think about going best player available first round and trading and taking Mohamed Kamara or Jonah Ellis later? If it's best player available at pick number 8, that to me would be like a Rome Odunze pick, and I would really like that. I think Rome Odunze is going to be a phenomenal wide receiver. And I know Atlanta's got bigger needs on the defensive line, but I don't think anyone's going to be upset in a few years when they look back and they see where Rome Odunze in his career is and where like Dallas Turner may be. But ultimately, I think Atlanta's going to go defensive end, edge rusher, because they are just so bad at that spot right now. So what do I think of it? I think it's a great idea. Like, it's not going to happen in my eyes, but I don't hate the idea. Kamara from Colorado State, extremely productive player last year for the Rams. The issue is when you're a 5th-year guy, 4th or 5th-year player, 24 years old, in a group of 5 conference, and you're just picking on 18 and 19-year-old offensive linemen, you may have some issues when you get to the NFL and your week one starting tackle in front of you is 29 or 30 years old, and he's not some 19-year-old that you bullied when you played Air Force. Sorry to the troops. So I like Ellis more. He's a little bit younger, and you can get both Ellis brothers on one team. Like, that's got to have some element. Like, they're gonna be a little bit stronger. Like, they're gonna play harder for one another. So I'd go with Ellis. I'm a big fan of his coming out of Utah. Jackson, what's up, dude? What do you think of Kalen Bullock out of USC? I feel like I probably should do a little bit more on our safeties in this draft class because Richie Grant is on thin ice right now. DeMarco Helms is this team's starting safety, and I thought Helms played really well last preseason and towards the end of last year. I feel like Atlanta's probably got a level of confidence I'm looking for is the word I'm trying to think of, in Helms to be a starter and Grant to be a really good backup piece for Atlanta. And they probably don't go safety until round 4 or 5 of the draft. Next question coming up here, Jason Greenway. Do you pass if one of the top 3 receivers is there? CLNS. Prize Picks likes you. I'm telling you guys, like I think Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze are better prospects, like better football players than all 3 edge rushers. So it's going to be really tough to swallow that pill of like, we're not taking the best guy because our defense needs more help. And that's a tough decision to make. It's not a spot I would strive to be in. But if I was in that spot, I'd take Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors and run. And yes, your defense is not going to be any better than it was. It's going to be worse than it was last year. And last year I felt like it was like a C to C minus, C defense, average-ish, and it's going to be worse, but you're going to thank yourself later down the road when you've got Rome Odunze and Drake London for years to come. It's what Atlanta wanted to see out of like you kind of had that from like Roddy White passing the torch to Julio Jones and then getting Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley together. You're going to get all that type of like dream the Falcons had, but both of them at a much younger age. All right, that will do it for us on our mailbag today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate everyone who takes time out of their day to watch our content. If you have not subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. Lock yourself in for the best free Falcons content out there.